All right, so we're working on Handsome Molly. I want you to really focus on the hammer-ons today. We're going to do a little bit of exercise where we work on the two different types of hammer-ons in this piece. First one being just a regular old hammer-on, where the first note is plucked and the next second one just hammers, like that. And the second variation is when you hit the next note when that hammer-on comes down, which is tricky. It feels a little bit like when you pat your head and rub your belly. It just feels like you're thinking about two different things at once. It's on this part of the song, we actually start with that second one I was talking about. You hammer on at the same time that you hit the next open D, all right? So the way you know you're doing it right is if you play the first note C and then hit the open D. It should sound like that without a hammer on. So that when you add the hammer on, okay, and it just has a little different sound to it. You're hearing the hammer on at the same time you're hearing. And just because you want to hear this, these two notes are the same. Okay, so we have two different types. Again, the first one that we're talking about is just a regular old hammer on. And the second one, you hear the difference? The first one we're talking about, sorry, that note when we hammer it on is passive. It doesn't have a strong sound. It doesn't have a hard accent on the beginning of it. And the second one we have an actual pluck at the end. All right, so I want you to practice both, and it may be helpful to do 2 or 3 of the same one in a row. And then the next one. Before you actually then in the piece actually put them back to back. Okay, because that's the hard part, putting them back to back. So there you have the hammer-on exercise. Is something that you can now push pause and do it again, or just do it by yourself. But that I want to make sure we're doing that. The last thing that I want to point out is the bend. I want to make sure we remember that we're playing this as a bend. We're playing the note, bending it, and then sliding it up. Right? We're going to make sure we and slide. Okay? Now keeping it in rhythm is a little bit harder to do, but I think if you mimic me and hear it, I think you'll do fine. The last thing, sorry, I said last thing last time, but here we go with the last thing. I want to work on the transition going from the second measure of the second line going into the first measure of the third line. We want to make sure we think of this as a chord, but the odd thing is when we're playing second finger on this note here, and then having to go to the same fret, different string, but use a different finger, first finger here. So let's just do, play these 2 notes in a row, second finger here, and then an open note, and then drop our first finger onto this note, and it sounds like this. Okay, so it's second finger, and then first finger drops here. And then add the second open note, 8th note, like this. And then when you're done with that, put the rest of the chord down. It sounds like this. Again, take your hand off. Make sure you start this with your second finger down. First finger, rest of the chord. Okay, this time I'm going to keep going for the rest of that line. Here it comes again. Sorry, make sure, I'm going to remind you, make sure you start with your second finger here. First finger. And just remember then, we're keeping our first finger down to the next part of that line, and then halfway through that, we take our hand off. Okay? All right, here's that, all these things together, okay? Beginning of the song. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Here you go. All right, there's a lot going on, and it's okay if you can't play the whole thing all the way through without something being an issue right now. But that's why we separated these little sections and work on these things by themselves, isolate them, and then we'll put it into the music. This week, I just want you to focus on trying to play it all the way through, at least, when I say all the way through, I mean just to the point where we stopped. And then work on these little things by themselves too, so that hopefully over the course of the week, you've gradually gotten more comfortable with the problem areas, and then the piece will get better as a result. Take it nice and slow. We're not rushing it. This can be fast weeks down the road. Don't worry about it. If you have any questions, let me know.